Good evening and welcome. Welcome once again to the Open Door Show from propertyCEO. My name is Richie Clapson, for those that don't know, and I'm here this week with the other half of propertyCEO, Mr. Ian Child. He's back. Welcome him back, everyone. Round of applause. Give us a hands up if you're pleased to see Ian back. Give us a hands up.
Yeah, I thought this was turning into a one-man show after last week. Actually, I did get reports that there was a bit of a takeover bid, but it's great to be back, fully refreshed, and joining you tonight for Open Door. Welcome to the show.
Good stuff. Look, in case this is your first time with us, we've got about 45 minutes, and it's going to be taking a deep dive into the world of small-scale property development. Isn't that right, Ian?
Certainly is. We're going to be covering some of the latest kind of news items. Also, in Open Door, we talk to a lot of the movers and shakers out there who can give us a bit of an inside track on what's happening in the world of property development specifically. And we're also going to be shining the spotlight on any areas where we think there could be a good opportunity, particularly a good opportunity for new developers to take a look at.
That's right. But above all, we're going to have a bit of fun doing it because, life is definitely far too short not to. That's what we think anyway. But we need you to join in. So please put your questions or comments in the chat box. Not rude comments. We don't want any of those. Just nice comments. And we'll try and get them all answered before the end of the show. So Ian, what are we going to be up to this evening? What's the plans?
Well, tonight we're going to be talking about the hidden opportunities that exist with commercial conversions. Obviously, a hugely popular strategy, but there are some rather nice and rather little known opportunities that we think people could be taking advantage of. Isn't that right?
Absolutely. So we'll do that in a minute. But first of all, I think we just get it cleared up because there's been a few rumours going around that last week I was taking votes and suggesting the show was much better without you, Ian. And categorically, everyone can agree. I never said that. I said it would be much better and I missed you. Give us a wave if you believe me, if that's true. Okay. Oh, okay. Well, I think the hand system's broke. No one's putting their hands up.
I think that's called tumbleweed, isn't it? I think that's called tumbleweed.
It was, to be honest, Ian, it was a brilliant show last week, and we got a lot of people writing in. Thanks for all those that wrote in and said it was a fantastic show. It was the 50th show. Those people that wrote in to claim their free mugs, I understand the team are going to send them out tomorrow to you in the post. I saw them all on one of the tables in one of the offices. They're all ready to go out, so you'll be getting your mugs, those that asked. So who's on tonight? Let's have a look. We've got quite a few of you, actually. So Dan's on. Hello, Dan. Clive's on. Clive, haven't spoken to you for a while. Trust you're well. Derek's on. Jin's on. Kara's on. Josh is on. Will's on. Debs is on. Hello, Debs. Debs says, good evening, Ian, Richie. I hope you are well both this evening. Managed to finish dinner before we started tonight. So I can what do you mean you've managed to finish dinner? We haven't even had our dinner. It's just one. No, it's one big long thing for us. It's no good. Who else is on? Jack's on. Thomas is on. Hello, Thomas. Mansour's on. Joe's on. Tony's on. Good evening. Tony. Raymond's on. Con's on. Garfield's on. Hello, Garfield. I haven't spoken to you for a long time. Hope you are well, my friend. A whole stack of you on. Whole stack of you. Who else says? Someone says, that's Teresa. I think that was about me saying about you not being here. Oh my God, your nose grew so big then, Richie. Okay, that's a bit harsh.
Now, is it?
Oh, Yoko says, welcome back, Ian. Oh, welcome back, Ian.
Yoko, thank you so much. I can always count on Yoko.
Oh, Yoko, I know who my friends are. And evening, gents, says Mark Holland. So, yeah, look, guys, great to have you all here. It's going to be a bit of fun this evening. And so get some questions in, anything to do with property, and we will answer them. Before that, though, we're going to do a couple of news items. So, Ian, have you got some news items? And then I'll talk about commercial conversions. Fantastic.
I have got a few. So here's one from Property Week. Inquiries soar as high street PDR, permitted development rights, are introduced. So interest in high street units that can be converted into homes has skyrocketed following the government's expansion of PD rights. This is a survey by Landtech that do some property development software. Searches for financial and professional services units that could be converted into homes surged by nearly 700% in April. Searches for, we've got here, restaurants and cafes that could be converted was up nearly 600%. And even the old stalwart offices, those searches rose by 80%. So Landtech reckons that there are currently just over 800,000 high street units that are under 16,000 square feet, which is the limit, for conversion to residential in the UK. So a couple of opportunities out there for people. It looks like people are catching on and interest is soaring. I saw one in planning resource, and this one is quite interesting. This is we've sort of, the planning system in the UK has long been berated for a number of different reasons. The government is kind of looking to tackle that. But here we've got a prominent house builder has launched a petition calling for legal changes to make planning committee members, these are the people that sit in local councils, take compulsory training, and for at least half to secure a formal planning qualification in order to prevent decisions based on politics and not planning merit. So apparently, well, as you probably know, planning committee members in England not required to have any planning training, and in Scotland actually it's slightly different. So they believe that a lot of decisions on planning applications that are based on politics and not on planning merit, so they're looking to change that. So quite an interesting one there. Good luck with that. And then the final one I've got here, I thought was quite interesting. We talk a lot about what happens to the roles of, office space going forward. We're talking about lots of office space becoming available, and what's the future hold in this kind of what will hopefully be a post-COVID world. And Property Week has got an article that is, we're quoting Gerald Kay, who heads up a company called Helical. And he's been looking at and sort of postulating at what new offices will look like in the new world. And he says that there's a number of key parameters that will drive the design of our new office spaces going forward. So attractive working environment, food and beverage facilities close at hand, that will suit some of us, Richie. And as part of this enhanced amenity, we'll be seeing an increased hotelification. So 5-star management a necessity. And they reckon that the trend, perhaps understandably, is going to be for wellness. So there's going to be state-of-the-art air conditioning to prevent risk from airborne viruses, as a surprise. A greater use of technology, so sensors that record occupation levels to improve energy efficiency. And they also reckon enhanced amenity, so greater demand for things like secure bike parking, and high quality club style changing facilities. So for those of you that are office based, all that to look forward to. So there you go, a few bits from the news this week.
Good stuff, like a bit of high class office club changing facilities, whatever they are. Anyway, good. Okay, so let me talk about commercial conversions. We said, there are hidden opportunities. And what we said we would do tonight is we'd reveal some of those hidden opportunities that pass most developers by. Are they hidden? Aren't they? What are they? Grab a pen and paper. Let me give you a few things to kick off. I'm going to rattle through these fairly quickly because we like to take your questions, and I can see some questions already coming in. So we'll pick up on some questions in a minute. So I'm going to give you sort of 5 areas that really are hidden for a lot of people because they just don't know they're there. They don't think about them. They don't immediately come to mind. So the first one I'm going to talk about is Class E repurpose. Class E repurpose. Write that down. What do I mean? Well, Class E, which is this new use class, a super use class, has got shops, financial, professional services, the banks. Ian was just talking about banks and the searches for those, cafes and restaurants, offices, light industrial, clinics, health centres, day nurseries, gyms, and indoor recreational centres in them. A whole load of stuff within that category. And isn't it interesting? I can't remember what the percentage increase was, but it was huge that people were searching for these buildings, probably to convert to residential. Okay, because this is one of the things that you can now do. But what a lot of people are missing, and a lot of people think about is, I'm going to do a commercial conversion. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to convert a commercial building to residential. I'm going to take an office and convert it to residential. But why don't you just repurpose it? Why do you even need to bother with any prior notification and PD? Why don't you actually try and take something like a shop and repurpose it into an office? Why don't you take a shop and repurpose it into a light industrial unit? Why don't you take a day nursery and turn it into a financial professional services business? Why not take a gym and turn it into a restaurant? You might think, what do I want to do all that for? Well, why not? Why not take that and sell that to commercial clients? They're a lot easier to deal with than they are the public. And often what you'll do is you'll build to a specification. So you'll build to an end user. You have an end user that wants to buy it and you're going to sell to them. It's a great little marketplace, but most developers forget repurposing, particularly new ones. They go, I've learned a strategy, office to residential. That's what I do. Think about repurposing. Class E repurpose is often a hidden opportunity and some great money to be made. Office conversions. Number 2, office conversions, are they all gone? So give us a wave. Who thinks most of the best office conversion opportunities have long gone? Give us a wave if you honestly think that. Let me see if any hands come. But yes, hands are coming up. Quite a few people. Yeah, they think, oh, the opposite. And you know, that's not surprising, because a lot of people think, well, yeah, there was a big capitalization on this. I'm going to drop all the hands now, guys, all coming down. Because, you know, a lot of people look at this and think, well, yeah, okay, this is all changed. You know, this is all gone. It all happened. People took opportunity of this. Some people will know this, some people don't. But they used to be date stamped. Okay, Class O, which was the office to Resi PD conversion, to qualify, the building need to have been built or in use as an office on or before the 29th of March 2013. So anything after that, 2014, 15, 16, you couldn't do. Well, from the 1st of August, the new Class MA, the PD right, is date stamped the 1st of September 2020. It brings another 7 years worth of office stock to the permitted development market opportunity. So those that thought office opportunities are gone, there's a whole host of those that you might have overlooked or other developers overlooked and haven't really spotted the subtlety that the date stamps changed, and that's now brought another 7 years worth of offices. Some of you may know that. I would imagine a large proportion of you don't. The third one I'm going to talk about is often a hidden opportunity, is light industrial conversions. Okay, how to do them? How to do them is the question. They're often hidden in residential areas. They're those horrible grotty little buildings that people don't want. They're not, and you might have heard, we had a commercial agent on the show a few weeks back, and he said, actually, there's a real demand for light industrial units at the moment. And actually, there was another agent speaking recently at an event who said a similar thing. And someone said to me, well, isn't that contradictory to what you say, that you say there's opportunities in the light industrial market? Not at all. We're both correct, because largely what people are looking for in terms of occupation of these units is a light industrial unit, a small flexible unit, largely on an industrial estate or on the edge, somewhere where they can get access and delivery. What I'm talking about is those opportunities, those grotty, horrible little buildings that often exist in residential areas, tucked behind houses and buildings. We had an academy day with some students this week. Someone bought a cracking building. It was built in the back gardens of various properties. Something like that is light industrial. You can convert that to residential. You've got to know how to do them. So how to do them is the big challenge. And most people don't know. It's a hidden opportunity because they just walk away. How would I convert that? That's a bit tricky. Well, when you know how, it is an opportunity. So the third one, I think, and it has been for a long time and it will be for a long time to come, a hidden opportunity for most developers. The fourth thing, which is a hidden opportunity, you might think this is an odd one, block planning. Write that down, block planning. What am I talking about? This is knowing how to sweat the asset, okay? This is often what we perhaps would say is the sort of secret sauce. Our academy days, which when we work with students, when they bring deals and so on, we often rework a scheme and we show how to get more into the proposed development that the student looked at, and then we work out now, hang on, what about this? Sweat the asset, change this, do that, get another unit in. It can make the difference, and it can make the difference for you to win the deal, or it significantly improve your profit. And that's why, you know, so many newbie developers walk away from deals. We often have it. Students come to us, go, Dad, this doesn't work. We go, well, let's have a look. Ah, well, why don't we block plan it like this? Why don't we do this and we can get an extra 2 flats in? And suddenly there's 20% profit, 250,000 quid, 300,000 pounds, a deal which just a few moments ago they were going to walk away from. So knowing how to block plan is important. Okay, so many people that don't know how to do this just leave deals on the table that they didn't know was a deal. It is a hidden opportunity. Not many people know how to do it. And the fifth and final one, before we get into some questions that are coming in thick and fast, putting PD rights together. Okay, putting them together. So linking them. Often the term, I know a planning consultant friend of ours uses, is daisy chaining. I love that. My daughter used to do those when she was young. But it's putting them together. Give you an example. An office building. So I just talked about office to residential conversion. So this is a good example. Most people think, okay, what am I going to do? I'm going to put flats in it. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take an office building and I'm going to convert it into flats. I'm going to convert it horizontally. What about if you convert it vertically? What if you slice it into a series of townhouses? You might say, well, what's the point of that? Well, the point of that is, what if you then link the domestic PD rights together, because those houses retain domestic PD rights, And then you can build a single story rear extension up to 4 meters without even asking. You can build a 2-story 3-meter extension without even asking, because they're domestic PD rights. That's just one example of linking it together. So imagine you take an office building, you cut it vertically, you turn it into 3 or 4 townhouses, and then you extend out the back all under permitted development rights. If you cut it horizontally, turned it into flats, you can't do that. But you can if you cut it vertically. And a lot of people don't know that. So these little things, that's just one example of linking PD rights together. So just in the time we've got available before we dive into questions, in terms of the hidden opportunities that pass most developers by, think about, number one, repurposing Class E buildings. A lot of value in that. Commercial conversions, office conversions to residential, they haven't gone all gone. The date stamp has moved, another 7 years worth of offices. And those light industrial buildings, those ones that exist in residential areas, knowing how to do them is a big thing. That can yield terrific opportunities. Fourth one, block planning. Simple, but complicated. And actually, if you don't know how to do it, it's massively complicated. When you know and you understand it, it really shows you how you can get value. And it's the difference between buying a deal, making money, and passing it by. And then the fifth and final one, understand and know what PD rights you can put together and link together to make deals. The housing, office, vertical carving is just one example. There we go. There's a few things on hidden opportunities. Hopefully that was of interest to people. Should we do some questions?
Let's do some questions.
Okay.
Shall I kick off with one? I've got one here which relates to block planning, which you mentioned. So you mentioned block planning. This is from Jazz. Apologies, Jazz. Welcome. Jazz asks, you mentioned block planning. How do I find out how to do that? Is there a good book on it? So unfortunately, Jazz, no, I'm not. Well, to the best of my knowledge, there's no book on how to block plan. Obviously, it's what we teach people. I think we're probably the only people out there that teach it. If you're an architect, you'd know how to do it. And I think what a lot of people would do is perhaps go to an architect, and the architect would be able to block plan. But of course, that costs money. What we want to be able to do is to do the block planning ourselves, so that we can get an early steer as to how many units we can get out and how we can maximize the value of a site before we've incurred any expenses. So yeah, unfortunately, there's no real shortcut to learning how to block plan. It's a question of just getting yourself educated. I think also it's important that yeah, you're looking at it from a developer's perspective, and so when you eventually go to an architect, if the deal sort of proceeds, then you're going to get their input as well, and between the two of you, likely to carve out yeah, hopefully a very profitable scheme.
Good stuff. Okay, I've got one from Robert. Robert, hello, good evening. He says, do you think office conversions are still viable? All the asking prices seem to be inflated. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? And actually, often people say, Robert, they say, oh, well, blooming commercial agents, you know, they work out what you can do with PD rights, and then they're going to try and flog the buildings for more money. Of course they're going to. That's their job, to maximize the value for the vendor. Of course, if they get more money for the vendor and they're on a percentage, what do? They get more money for themselves. And of course, if they're the agent selling buildings for more money than the other agent, they're going to get more business. So why wouldn't they do that? Of course, they're going to be inflated, but they can only be inflated to a certain level. Okay, there is a point when they get overinflated and no one's going to buy them. Having said that, there's always, there's often someone out there who's a bit crazy who does go and buy them, okay, with more money than sense. If you get into a reasonable sized project, and we talk about small scale development, 5 to 20 units, Robert, that's the sort of small scale sweet spot. Blimey, that was difficult to say, wasn't it? Small scale sweet spot. Hey, say that when you've had a beer or a small glass of wine. If you get into that area, okay, you're likely to have to bring commercial funding. So you're not going to make a big mistake and get your numbers wrong, because the commercial funders are going to check it out. So ultimately, inflated prices would come down to a reasonable level that people would purchase. But we go back, Robert, to what I was talking about block planning. So why sometimes, and we have students say this to us, Robert, they say to us, yeah, but how come someone's outbid me? They've outbid me on that building. We say, let's have a look at your block planning. Let's see what you've done. Well, did you realize you can get an extra 2 units in there? You could have paid another £50,000 for that building, another 100,000, whatever it might be. Well, that's what they went for. Well, there you are then. It's the secret of block planning. That ability to sweat it is why sometimes you'll see people that, well, how did they do that? Or they knew how to carve vertically. They're doing a scheme, and then they're going to build out the back. They're going to get more value out of it. So that's what you're going to do. Don't, people complain and they moan and whinge, and I'm not suggesting you do that, Robert, but people do that about agents. Oh, they've inflated, because they're gonna. You would if you're an agent. But the thing is, be clever, be smart, okay? Don't pay over the odds, but sweat the asset. Robert, if you learn how to do that, that can make a big difference. There we go, Robert. Hopefully that was good. What's next then, Ian?
We've got one here from Mike, who asks, do you need to set up a limited company for your development brand? Well, Mike, the answer is not necessarily. What you're going to need to do is to set up what's called a special purpose vehicle, SPV, for each project that you do. But that kind of isn't your brand. That's just a limited company that kind of manages and deals with every aspect of the development. That's the entity that everybody will kind of deal with on the project. So your brand can be something completely different. You don't necessarily need to set it up as a limited company, because your commercial lenders won't want to use it for the projects. They'll want a nice, fresh, out-of-the-box limited company with no history. And so you're able to create a brand that sits without a limited company behind it, because, of course, as soon as you get to do a project, then it will be the SPV that is a limited company. So the answer to the question is it's not absolutely essential, but some developers choose to. It is entirely optional. What I would always say with regards to any limited companies, have a chat with your accountant or tax advisor to make sure that what you're doing is the right thing for you. There you go, Mike. Hope that helps. Richie.
Good stuff. Okay, Thomas's question. Thomas says, Richie and Ian, that's both of us. Last week, he'd have just said Richie, because it was just me last week, and it was a pretty good show, but I don't want to dwell on that and go on about it. I've mentioned it once or twice already. Anyway, quite often, commercial agents measure the units in net internal area. However, I believe residential is gross internal area. Would be great if you can clear this up as potentially more space. Okay, Thomas, we will clear that up. Yes, you are absolutely correct. Most agents will quote information on a building on net internal area, and that doesn't include the toilets, the corridors, the stairways. Of course, if you're reconfiguring, you don't need communal toilets for residential flats, do you? You don't need the same hallways. Of course, you might have some hallways, so bear in mind you've got to have that, but you might not need the same amount of staircases. You might reconfigure the staircases. So what you need to work out is the gross internal area of the building, and then you need to be thinking about taking off some circulation space for the residential, which, as I say, could be different compared to what you have in the office, and then calculate your flat. So yes, you're absolutely 100%. When you're looking at residential, you're looking at gross, and most agents actually mention net. There we go, Thomas. Hopefully that is good. Let me jump on a strip hiccup straight another one, because this covers two. I like to kill two birds with one stone, as they say. And this is, there's a question here. Is it not the architect's job to do block planning? Why should we need to know how to do this, says Pam. And Colin says, how many times the architect could sweat another extra apartment versus your block planning? So Colin's saying, is the architect better or us? Well, I think as a developer, you should be, to start with, okay? And this is about, and the reason I talk about it, well, first of all, there's sort of two questions in one. First of all, what you can't do is you can't go to an architect every 5 minutes, every time you're looking at a scheme, and get them to do you a block plan. Because if you do, you'll be spending out money left, right, and centre, or you've used up all your favours very, very quickly. Yes, architects are very good at laying out a block plan. But if you have the skill, the basic understanding as the entrepreneur, it's your drive and ambition to get more out of it. You know, as a developer, I need to sweat this asset. I need to get one more. I need to do this. I need to do that. Okay. You also have the information of what can sell, what can't sell, because you've been looking at the demographics. This is a process we teach students. Who's going to buy, what they're going to buy, how quickly they're going to move, and all that. So you've got all these variables. If you give it to an architect, unless you absolutely nail down, the architect will come back with a scheme and you go, yeah, no, that's not quite what I want. Can you go and have a look at it? And before you know it, you spent £1,000 or £2,000 or £3,000. The fact, I strongly believe, and this is proved time and time again, if you as a developer, okay, and this is just with new developers as well, I mean, I've been doing this a long time, but with new developers, if you know how to sweat the asset and you know how to block plan, you've got that basic skill, and some will be better at it than others, I grant you, okay, so Pam, maybe you won't be the best. Colin, I'm sure you'll be fantastic, okay, then you are the one that's pushing the boundaries. You're one that's going to sit and think about it and flex around. And you're not bound by all schemes you've done before. You can be creative and you're entrepreneurial. What you then get to is you do get to a point okay, when the architect will take it over and really make it fit. But your skill set to do block planning, I think, is invaluable for you to really mold the scheme how you want, push the boundaries, and then let the architect say, right, I need this scheme and I've got this mix of flats and this is what I want in it, and that's how I want to do it. And then you pass it across once you know it's going to work. But you say you can't just commercially every 5 minutes go to them, and I don't think they do as well. Honestly, I don't. So Pam and Colin, there you go. There's an answer to those 2 questions. Ian, over to you.
Fantastic, 2 for 1. So got a question. Where's it gone? I had it here a second ago. It was from Helen. Welcome, Helen. Helen asked, what's a holding company and do property people need to have one? Okay, so a holding company, Helen, basically is a company that sits almost like an umbrella company. So a lot of people will have more than one business interest. So they might have several limited companies already. Even if they haven't, when they start doing development, as I mentioned earlier, they're going to be doing their developments within this special purpose vehicle. It can be tax efficient for, or rather more tax efficient for the profits from your special purpose vehicle. So when you've sold all your units and made all of your profit from the development, rather than take that out of that company there and then, actually to run it up to the holding company and then distribute the profits from them. You have a bit more flexibility with regards to the timing of when you take that dividend from the holding company. And the other advantage potentially is that you can then lend money from the holding company, perhaps for your second project, kind of roll the profit from one into the next. Again, the idea there is that it is more tax efficient. The standard rules apply though. I'm not a tax advisor, I can't give you advice, so you do need to check it out with your either a tax advisor or your accountant. I would say in particular a property accountant, as ever in the world of property generally, and property development is no exception. Getting advice from an accountant who knows property development is the way to go. You tend to find that some of the more perhaps the standard, if I use that term, accountants perhaps don't know all of the latest and don't specialize in property, and you want to make sure that you're getting the best advice possible that's going to be tailored for you. And that's kind of why it's so important that you get that personal advice, because everybody's different. And certainly with things like holding companies, there's going to be lots of things that could come into play. Your other businesses, other family members that might be shareholders and so on and so forth. So get some good advice and get it right from the start. We all too often see people who have had a go at development, haven't got it right from the start, and then find that they can't backtrack and end up paying more tax than they should have done. So get that bit right from the start and you are off to a flyer. There you go. Helen, I hope that helps. Richie.
Okay, well, we just talked about a block planning, and I answered Colin's question on that. And Colin says, I can't wait to school an architect, smiley face. Do you know, the thing is, though, don't worry about that. They're just architects. You're the developer. The point is, and I just want to know, architects aren't developers. They don't have the whole picture. I'll give you an example of one of our students who I did a deal with him, and I said, how are you getting on? He said, oh, well, I've got a scheme back from the architect. He said, it's not really what I want. I said, what do you mean it's not what you want? He said, well, they've come up with this sort of, you know, these 3-bed flat and this and that, and it hasn't really got a garden. And I said, okay, well, what brief did you give the architect? He said, oh, well, I sent the drawings to the architect and said, see what you can come up with. Now, you know, they've only got one part of it. They've come up with a lovely design, but they're not developers. This is the big thing. And what I said to that student, I said, well, what is it you want? Oh, well, I want this, this, and this. This is what the market demands. This is what the demographics are. This is what the numbers stack up for me. The architect doesn't have all that information. And I think here, you've got to be confident as developers. Now, I know a lot of you on here, we've got some of our students, but a lot of you are brand new. Probably some of you are just thinking about being developers. Some of you are probably trying to get your confidence up. Well, look, when you're taught properly, you're educated properly, you can do that. You go in with confidence and you say to the architect, that's not good enough. That's not what I want. Can we change this? Don't be subservient. The architect is not a developer. They are very clever, hopefully, at architecture, but they are not developers. That's a big subtle difference. Derek says, office conversions still seem viable. We're currently doing 2, one with 49 flats and another with 55 flats. Well done, Derek. There you are, alive and kicking. Good stuff. Okay, Sadie says, let me pick another one up. I'm on a roll here. Sadie says, I'll let you go in a minute in. Sadie says, yeah, I think about it. I just sometimes forget you're here. You know, I'm just, because last week, I won't mention it. Okay. Right. Sadie says, can you tell me what the new Class E is about again? What's included in it? Oh, Sadie, come on. Surely you should have paid attention. Write this down, Sadie. Grab a pen and paper. Class E, it's called Commercial Business and Service Class. And in it is shops. Write that down. Financial and professional services. I tell you what, just write banks, Sadie. Just write banks. Cafes and restaurants. Offices. Light industrial. Clinics, health centres, day nurseries, gyms, and indoor recreational centres. Sadie, I'm not going to tell you anymore what it is. What is it about? That's what's in it. It's just a big use class. It's all those buildings, Sadie, are in one use class. So that means you can switch around. What you couldn't do before, shops and light industrial were different use classes. You couldn't have taken a light industrial building and turned it into a shop. You had to go for planning permission. But now you can. You might go, well, why is that so interesting, Clapson? Well, the interesting thing, Sadie, is, and you might not have said that, but let's assume you did, because it makes for an interesting discussion. Assuming you might have said that, okay, the interesting thing is you don't have to go for planning permission, and that is a real buggeration, because the planning system in this country is a right old mess. Okay, Ian said they're going to go and get schooled properly. They're not even schooled properly. So, you know, if you can avoid the planning system at all costs, then that's a great opportunity. You just get on with the development and you get the funding to support it, because you can do it. In lots of ways, repurposing and moving around with Class E is better than permitted development. There you go, Sadie. Ian.
That's my turn, is it? Fantastic. It's great to be back. So I've got one here from Lucy, who asks, I'm new to property development and not sure which strategy to turn to first. What would you advise? Well, I think the first thing, Lucy, is get an understanding of the opportunities that are out there. I mean, we've been talking a lot this evening, obviously, about commercial conversions, but I think one of the key things that, to bear in mind when you get into property development, particularly for your first project, is about basically reducing risk, minimizing the risk as you go in. One of the things that I think a lot of people do when they get into property development is, you know, understandably, they have a thought about what they want their business to look like at the end of the day and what sort of projects that they want to get into and end up doing, and the sort of scale involved and so on and so forth. But when you do your first one, it's a learning curve. It's a learning curve for you. It will be the first time perhaps you borrowed money from a commercial lender, so that relationship is new. You'll be bedding in your professional team who won't have worked with you before and may not have worked together before. And of course, you're on a steep learning curve. So there's all these kind of cogs that are meshing together for the first time. So really important that you make your first project as simple as possible. Don't kind of overthink it. Be prepared to take perhaps a smaller project or a simpler project. The way to go, though, frankly, is, as Richie mentioned, you know, the planning system is not in great shape. There is a huge element of risk. I mentioned the news item earlier where, yeah, a lot of people in the council are making political decisions based on planning applications rather than making decisions based on merit. In that kind of environment, you want to be as far away from that as possible. So permitted development rights, if your first scheme has got PD rights and there's a whole range to choose from, then you are definitely going to be reducing your risk. So yeah, get yourself educated, get yourself look at opportunities where the risk is reduced, both in terms of size and also the planning risk, and then that's going to be a great opportunity for you to get started, get out of the blocks, and then for your second project, once all of those things are now up and running and kind of meshed together, then perhaps you can make a move into the direction where you want your business to go going forward. What I would say, though, just to counsel you, is that we think small is beautiful. It can be very tempting to think, well, the economies of scale mean that I don't need to put twice as much effort in to do a scheme that's twice as big. But those bigger schemes, the bigger you get, the riskier and the more challenging they tend to be. It is possible to make some very healthy returns from small scale property development, and even just sticking at that level can make for a slightly more stress-free life than going for those bigger schemes. So there we are, a few tips, Lucy, on how to get started. Richie.
Okay. Colin says, where can I read about all the combinations with the news classes in layman terms? If you're talking about Class E, just go to planning portal. The planning portal will show you all about Class E. If you're talking about linking all the PD rights together, you probably won't be able to find anything on that. There's no one has written anything on that, I don't think. That's about probably talking to people like us and us telling you how it works. Hopefully that gives you a bit of an answer. Chris says, are you allowed to join the PD rights together in the way you mentioned, or is this a bit iffy? No, Chris, it's not iffy, not at all. We're not there. It's like, yeah, I'll tell you what, Chris.
By the way, you can join some PD rights together, but don't tell anyone else on the show.
Is this what happened last week? Have I got to watch the rerun to actually work out all the dodgy deals you did?
Yeah, all dodgy. Chris, not iffy at all. Of course you can do it. A good planning consultant will guide you through that and make sure you do that right. You're going to do it in certain ways. Do some of the local planning officers like it? Not always, no, but you can do it. It's totally legitimate. Of course you can. Yeah, absolutely. So hopefully that helps. Mark says, let me pick up Mark's question. Hi, Richie and Ian.
Hi.
That's quite polite, isn't it? When a building has, as an example, 2 to 3 use classes, e.g. office, retail, storage, falling within it, or if all the use classes are within use class E, is this all done under one PD application, or is it separate applications for each use of the building, or is it in fact classed as sui generis, so falling outside of PD? Potentially, yes, all of the above. Sorry, Mark, that's not an easy answer. Some of the problems can be is if a building is mixed use, then they are quite likely to class it as sui generis. Sui generis is a bit of a catch-all for those that don't know, is a planning use class, which is basically everything else that's not in any of the other use classes, or some specific things which are identified in sui generis. And sui generis doesn't have any PD rights. So, Mark, there is a real possibility if you've got a mixture of retail, storage and office, unless there is a dominant use, let's say it's sui generis and you don't have PD. You can't split them up individually unless they're on separate titles. Okay, so you can't easily do that. What I would say, Mark, talk to a good planning consultant. If it's something you're looking at, talk to a good planning consultant and let them have a look at the scheme you're looking at, and they will hopefully try and guide you. There we go. Good stuff. Ian.
I got one here from Karen, who says, evening, Karen. A while back, you talked about the budget. Well, that was a while ago. I think that the 95% mortgage opportunity can only be good for not only new home buyers, but also developers. Do you agree? Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, of course, it's great for new home buyers. But what's good for new home buyers is ultimately going to be good for developers in the main. It's what it's doing is, supply and demand. At the end of the day, if we're building houses, then we need people to be able to afford them. And that one of the challenges that so many first-time buyers have had, particularly, is just getting that foothold on the ladder. And the mortgage situation has been pretty dire for a while. We're now seeing that flexibility come back into the market. New buyers kind of then able to step onto the ladder, and that of course is going to be great, particularly for small scale developers that are building typically perhaps first time buyer flats and apartments. So we're sort of building in that in the space rather than doing luxury apartments or 5-bed houses where you're doing stuff in the need space rather than the want space. Then you're going to be it's a great opportunity. I think also what it does is just keeps that momentum in the market. We've got a potentially some interesting times ahead. It's been a very buoyant period for residential sales. It remains to be seen what's going to be happening going forward. But certainly things like the brakes on mortgages is going to be a big help for home buyers and therefore developers as well. There you go, Karen. I entirely agree with you.
Oh, well done, Karen, for remembering that. That was in the last season. So yeah, good for coming back and speaking with us. Give us a hands up, by the way, if this is your first time on the show. Give us a hands up if this is your first time. Yeah, we got a few. Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, welcome, and please come back again. We would like to have you here, part of our little family of CEOs. Bit of fun, isn't it? We enjoy it. Quick fire. It's not like other webinars. It's a bit of a laugh, and hopefully we give you some. We always say no BS and no fluff. We just give you straight answers. If you don't like the answer, I do apologise. Well, actually, I don't apologise. We're just going to give you straight answers. Okay, Thomas' question says, when are all the opportunities coming? Says Thomas. My network of agents are telling me it's quiet. Okay, interesting, isn't it? Well, when are they coming? Well, they are coming, and they are out there, okay. And a lot of agents are saying it's a bit quiet, but a lot of it's to do with the furlough scheme, okay. So a lot of companies are still propping up their businesses with furlough, which I think is September. I think it scales down. I think this month is 80%, and then I think it goes to 70 and 60 August. And I think it ends in September. So as we go through that period, those companies that are propping up themselves with the government's money, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you pay your staff some money? Well, ultimately, they'll have the rug pulled, and they're going to make a decision. And I was speaking actually, Thomas, to a commercial agent just recently who said exactly that. He said, we are waiting. He said, the big influx will come. He said, once the furlough stops. He said, because there's so many companies that he knows of that are just saying, look, once we get to that point, we're shutting the doors. We're going to keep the staff going. We're going to pay what we can, and then, you know, it's unlikely we're going to continue. Some will carry on, and that's good. You know, appreciate that and pleased that they will, but others won't. So I think it is coming. There are definitely opportunities out there, and quite a lot of our students, Thomas, are reporting an increase in activity and an increase in opportunities. So maybe the agents you're working in, you've got a bit of a network there, get out and try and find some more, or maybe get in those black books. I don't know if you're in the agent's black book. A lot of people think, oh, I couldn't get in a black book, I'm a new developer. Well, you can, you just need to know how. And we've got students right now, you know, and it's not easy. They are working hard, but they're getting deals which are off market coming straight to them. That's what you want to do. Okay. Dev's question, let me pick up Dev's and then I'll give you a go in. Dev says, do PD rights still apply when extending existing residential on a flood zone? New developments had a fundamental objection on flood risk grounds. Any suggestions? Okay, so that's domestic PD rights, which we don't necessarily specialize in here. We're much more based around commercial work and you know, small scale development. So this is a much lower end of the market. So I can tell you, Devs, off the top of my head, I don't know the answer to that. What I would suggest is if you've had an objection on something, speak to the planning consultant to see what they've objected on. Now, what can change is flood zones can change, the flood levels can change. You need to look at the detail. You need to drill into the detail and see what the level of flooding is, because that will depend on whether that's a problem for your building and the flood zone that you've got, you know, on the floor levels that you've got. If you can understand that, your planning consultant can understand that, then they can probably try and see whether that's going to be an issue or not an issue, or argue on grounds that it's a straightforward extension. Some PD extensions, okay, because you're talking about PD rights to apply and extend, some extensions you don't even have to apply for. So a lot of the domestic extensions, I say, we don't teach this stuff per se, but some of the domestic PD extensions you just get on with. You can just do. You don't even have to ask or tell anyone. So just ask your planning consultant, just give you a bit of guidance on that, because I'm not sure why that's become a real problem. Obviously, we don't understand the full detail. Ian, shall we see if we can pick up just a couple more? Do you want to go for one?
I can go for one. I can go for one here from Richard, who says, do you think as a landlord with a large portfolio, many years experience in this area, I could move into development without too much risk? It seems a much bigger step to me. I think, Richard, you know, great question. It's a dilemma, I think, for a lot of landlords about how they get into development. And I think a lot of people, when they look at development, it does look more complex, and it's certainly different. I think one of the things that when you scratch under the surface of development, you know, keeping it small scale, as I mentioned earlier, that definitely de-risks things. I think also it's very highly leveraged, and one of the secret ingredients that you have in development, which you quite often don't have as a landlord when you're refurbishing your properties to rent them out, is a project manager. So when, as landlords, when we refurb properties, typically we will manage that ourselves. We get a builder in, and the trades will come and do the work, and that can be a reasonably stressful period because we're managing that relationship and popping around and checking and all of that good stuff. When you step up to development, then, you know, even at the small scale level, what you're looking at there is the ability to hire a project manager, and that makes life a lot easier because you're then not the person that's banging heads together and overseeing things on site. You've got your eyes and ears who's, you know, got a lot of experience doing that for you. I think the other thing about being a landlord, I mean, a lot of landlords actually do quite a lot of effectively light development in any event. You know, they take properties that are perhaps run down and then do them up. Maybe they convert them into HMOs. You know, small scale development, is not too many rungs up the ladder. So there's already, what's in a name. There's already, I think, a lot of learnings there that landlords already have. They also have those kind of business skills to make it that are essential for being a developer. And I think the final thing to say is that I think being a landlord and a developer is a really good kind of recipe. I think when you look at one of the challenges that most landlords have, they run out of deposits because they want to keep growing their portfolio. Then if you can do development as well, then you not only you've got two eggs in the basket, you're also being able to kind of get deposits from your developments and then put them in to be able to build your portfolio a lot more quickly. Richard, it sounds like you've got a large portfolio already. Maybe you're not looking to grow it, but what I'd say is for any other landlords out there or people thinking about becoming a landlord, the last time the government was kind to landlords, I think, was 2015. But at the moment, they're looking to be quite kind to developers, all these PD rights and other incentives to help fix the housing crisis. So yeah, definitely worth taking a look at development and finding out what it's all about, because you can certainly do both. Richard, I hope that helps.
And Josh, we're going to give the last question to you. And Josh's question is Class MA a use class? Sorry, I'm not sure I heard this right. No, Josh, it's not a use class. It's a permitted development class. The use class that it refers to is Class E. Okay, Class E covers a lot of buildings that I talked about. I'm not going to give that list out again. I think it was Pam was struggling with that one, but you have to remember, listen to the replay. It's all on YouTube, by the way. Pop onto YouTube, Property CEO, and you can get all past shows. So Josh, have a re-listen to that. But Class MA is the permitted development. It is based around use Class E. There we go. That is the end of the show. If you have enjoyed the show, please pop in the chat box what you think of it. If you've liked it, that's always nice to see at the end. We put this show on for you guys. Next show is next Thursday, the 10th of June at 7 p.m, same time. And we then have a guest. We have Mike Bristow on. He is the Chief Executive Officer of Crowd Property. Mike is a great guy, and Mike will be here to answer any questions you've got. You want to think about raising money, what to do, then Mike will help you out. So he'll be coming on the show. So Mike Bristow will be here 7 o'clock next week. And for anyone out there who's thinking, do I want to do this? Am I interested? Look, on Saturday, if you're free on Saturday morning and you want to spend 3 hours with myself and Ian, I know that's a tough ask, but if you're interested, put this down, grab a pen and paper, propertyceo.co.uk/roadmap. Won't cost you a penny. But if you want to come and join us, /roadmap, propertyceo.co.uk/roadmap, and you can come and join us for a free 3-hour session on Saturday morning, this Saturday, and we'll talk to you all about development and what's involved in that. What's not to like about that? So yeah, if you've enjoyed the show, pop it in the chat box. Let's see what people are saying. Colin says it was a stunning show. Hi, Richie and Ian. Great show again. Glad to be back. Dan says, great webinar, as always. Thanks, guys. Mark says, great content, as always. Good to see you back, Ian. Good to see you back, Ian. He's got, sorry, Richie. Yeah, okay. Thanks very much, Mark. Appreciate that. Very informative, always. Thank you, Richie and Ian. Roadmap session was fantastic. We enjoyed it and we learned a lot. Fully recommend it. Yoko fully recommends you come on Saturday, guys. If you want to do that, that would be absolutely terrific. So hopefully you can enjoy that. Harjinder says great show. Jess says thank you very much. Good show, says Teresa. Harvey says what a great evening. Love it as always. We love you as always. See you soon. See you next week. Have a good evening. Goodbye.
Bye now.